Hello there, children. Today we're going to be discussing the hero's journey. My name is Steve Forchetti and I help guide people along their spiritual awakening. So, Joseph Campbell says that a hero is someone who has given their life to something bigger than oneself. Subsequently, the hero's journey is a timeless story of a hero who leaves the ordinary world to go on an adventure full of peril. Every book you've ever read, every story you've ever been told, every TV show or movie you've ever watched follows along this particular motif. So what is the hero's journey? Joseph Campbell's definition is that a hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man. The story structure can be applied to patterns or cycles within our lives, and with a better understanding of how this process works along with the alchemical processes, we can have a better understanding of the energetics within our own lives, ultimately learning how to break out of the norm and find our personal higher callings. On a hero's journey, the hero is going to meet many enemies, many friends, experience many new things, and ultimately they'll have to face their shadow self, which is typically more terrifying than all of the things I previously just said. Joseph Campbell has broken this down into about 12 main steps, which can be summarized in 3 stages, which are known as the departure, the initiation, and the return. So stage 1, the departure. This is the beginning of the journey where the hero is first introduced. We learn about the hero's struggles and just about who they are as a person and why we care about what's about to happen to them. This can be broken down into 4 steps. The first step is the ordinary world. Nothing has happened yet. We're meeting our hero and seeing the world through their eyes as though nothing has happened, and is how they've known the world to be for their entire life. So we're going to be analyzing this motif through the South Park movie, which I can hands down say is one of my favorite movies ever created, if not my favorite movie. So the ordinary world, by the way, I do have to mention that there will be spoilers in this, but the movie came out in 1999, so frankly, if you haven't seen it at this point, what are you waiting for? So the ordinary world, the movie just opens with a song talking about how nothing really exciting is happening. It's just another Sunday morning in their quiet mountain town. It's just painting the picture of South Park, Colorado, and introducing a lot of the characters that are shown in the TV show. Step 2 is the call to adventure. So there has to be a call to action, otherwise the movie would be very, very boring. Just any story would be boring if it was just the ordinary world. So this is the reason in which the journey or the quest begins, and the hero or heroes in this case must leave their ordinary lives to face new challenges. So how does it apply to the South Park movie? In the movie, the boys learn that Terrence and Phillip, their favorite cartoon characters, are having a movie called Asses of Fire, and it's come out. So the movie's full of swear words that they never heard before, and they start using the words after having convinced a homeless person to sneak them into the movie because it's rated R. They start using the words and convincing all of their friends to go see the movie. All the kids at school go see the movie, and they start cursing, and then parents get involved because kids are cursing. After the second time of seeing the movie, the boys go outside, and Cartman convinces Kenny to light a fart on fire, which then causes Kenny to explode, and he dies. They killed Kenny, those bastards. So again, parents get involved, which then goes into part 3 of the hero's journey, the refusal of the call. This is where the hero or heroes feel resistance to their calling due to nerves, anxiety, fear, or hesitancy, and eventually the hero gives in and embarks on their quest. So this doesn't really apply to the kids. This applies more to the parents in the movie. This also applies in real life to the media controversy around the Grand Theft Auto video game series. Instead of just having mature, responsible conversations with children, parents have gone on a brigade to try to cancel, in real life, the Grand Theft Auto games, and in the South Park movie, cancel Terrence and Phillip. Terrence and Phillip are placed under citizen's arrest, and the parents have them tried as international criminals for defiling the youth of America. So they've refused the call of just being mature adults and talking to their children, and they go on a witch hunt of Terrence and Phillip. Step 4 is meeting the mentor. So the mentor acts as a teacher, trainer, guide, or instructor for the hero. The mentor is able to pass on tools or skills that the hero may need to succeed on their journey. These tools may be insights, special powers, or physical objects. So in the movie, the boys get grounded for their cursing and are basically sick of their parents' shit. So they decide that they're going to save Terrence and Phillip by organizing a rebel group of children at school called La Resistance. During their initial meeting, they are informed of a rogue child named Christophe, or the Mole. And they go to meet him, so they seek out this kid, and they find that he's a very bitter 9-year-old who really just hates God. Also, at the same, he hates God and also has expertise in covert operations. During the same time, because he has the dirtiest vocabulary, Cartman is implanted with something called the V-chip, which is used sort of as a digital cattle prod. So every time he curses, he gets a little shock in his neck. So that's the end of phase 1. Phase 2 is initiation. Now that the characters in conflict have been introduced, we enter the largest part of the story, which is the initiation. There's lots of new characters, settings, trials, and tests that are presented for the heroes to endure in order to develop their characters, going from being just ordinary characters into the hero that they're meant to be. Nobody goes through a hero's journey and comes out the same person. So step 5 in this process is called crossing the threshold. This is where the hero leaves their old world behind and crosses into the unknown, leaving the ordinary world behind. Usually there's something or someone acting as a literal barrier preventing them from going out into the new world. But once the hero crosses the threshold, they know that there is no turning back. So in the movie, the boys are grounded, and they learn that in retaliation for arresting Terrence and Philip, the Canadians have dropped bombs on the Baldwins, killing the Baldwin brothers. This then leads President Clinton to declare war on Canada. It's also said that Terrence and Philip are going to be electrocuted as part of the entertainment at a nearby USO show. So the boys leave their home despite being grounded and knowing that they're going to get in a lot of trouble for leaving their grounding, because it's worth it to them to save Terrence and Philip. Step 6 is the introduction to the tests, the friends and foes. So the story and cast are expanded here as a new world is introduced to them. They're leaving the town of South Park with the Mole and going out to the USO show, where they're basically at an army base. They have to evaluate the people around them and discover who is a friend and who is a foe. The hero encounters struggles and learns that the rules of their old world no longer apply, and they need to learn a new way of life. So in the movie, while the boys are gathering forces to fight Mothers Against Canada, which is the group started by Sheila Bravlovsky, Kyle's mom, in order to stop this dirty movie from being circulated, they're gathering forces. We are reminded that Kenny has died, and instead of going to heaven, he's gone to hell. Kenny is surrounded by demons and ultimately befriends Satan, who is struggling with his intimate relationship with a very controlling and sexually driven Saddam Hussein. This movie's fucking crazy. Their friendship begins to slowly soften Satan's heart and towards humans, and Kenny's muffled lessons of empowerment help Satan to realize that he may need to leave his abusive lover. This is where we learn that Saddam is basically the driving force behind Satan's malice. We learn that while he is the devil, ultimately he's not a bad guy. So basically, this is, again, where we're seeing the expansion of the story. We're leaving the earthly realm and going down to hell and seeing Kenny's personal hero's journey, where he goes from just being a normal kid on the block with Stan, Kyle, and Cartman to becoming an emissary of light in hell. So that takes us to step 7, which is the approaching of the Innermost cave. This is the final preparation for the main event of the story. The heroes gather supplies and get into the place for the final battle, and this typically includes additional tests, risk, danger, and oftentimes death or loss of a friend. So in the movie and back on Earth, La Resistance gathers supplies to launch the resistance against Mothers Against Canada, or MAC, as the U.S. Army. They deploy their forces around the USO show and get ready to strike. The Mole informs the boys of the potential risks and begs them to warn him about guard dogs because he fucking hates guard dogs. That sets us up for step 8, which is the Ordeal. This stage is also commonly known as the Dark Night of the Soul. So in the movie and back on Earth, La Resistance launches in ultimately a successful rescue of Terrence and Philip. Cartman forgets to warn the Mole about the guard dogs, and the Mole is ultimately torn apart and killed during the setup for the rescue. Kyle and Stan get on stage and confront Kyle's mom and try to convince her that Terrence and Philip should not be killed. They are successful, and Kyle's mom learns how to be a responsible parent. Kyle and Stan do their little thing they normally do in every episode at the end of the episode, where they tell their lessons that was learned, and there's ultimately a meeting of the minds met where they need to just have a conversation about using swear words and how things are just not appropriate at certain ages. This leads to step 9, the reward. The reward or magical elixir gained for completing the journey or quest. This is the bright light at the end of the tunnel and the thing that makes the journey worth it in the end by promising fulfillment and hope for a brighter future. So in the movie, Mothers Against Canada is convinced that horrible, deplorable violence is acceptable in movies as long as you don't use any naughty words. Come on now. So Terrence and Philip are released from captivity and everyone is happy. So we think. This leads to stage 3, the return. So in this phase of the hero's journey, the heroes reflect on their journey and transition from being ordinary characters into the heroes as they complete their quest. They are basically learning the lessons and getting ready to go back to what they want to be a normal life, but it's really a new life from an elevated perspective of consciousness. So stage 10, or step 10, on the road again. The hero turns back around to go home and to return to a normal life. This is where they encounter the final test or roadblock. It could be a roadblock, a natural disaster, or a supernatural villain. If the road home was easy, the story would be boring. So this is like the final boss fight. They get through the dark night of the soul, and this is the final test at the other end of the dark night of the soul. So in the movie, as the wholesome moment between the children and Mac is achieved, the Canadian Army invades and an all-out war begins between the Americans and the Canadians. In this process, Terrence and Philip are shot and killed, and their innocent blood touches the earth, which brings about a dark prophecy, and Satan's army cracks open the earth, comes up, and all-out war begins between America, Canada, and hell. Satan begins to try to conquer the planet. This then takes us to step 11, the resurrection. This is the moment where the hero gets to prove that they have transformed and are no longer ordinary characters, but worthy of the title of hero. So they thought that they had accomplished it, but now this is really their test to show, I am a hero. So in the movie, Saddam Hussein begins to take charge of Satan's plan, making it all about him and not about Satan, even though it's hell's army, which leaves only one solution. Cartman, whose V-chip is basically malfunctioning, decides to start saying as many curse words and swear words as he possibly can, and thanks to the malfunction in his chip, instead of cattle prodding himself, it turns into a lightning bolt that he can shoot through his hands, and he starts cursing, and shoots a gigantic beam at Saddam Hussein, which leaves him crippled and weak on the ground. Kenny, who also returned to Earth along with Satan's army, encourages Saddam to finally break up encourages Satan to break up with Saddam once and for all. Saddam is then thrown back into hell and impaled on a big spike, which leads to the end of the war between the USA, Canada, and hell. This brings us to the final step of the hero's journey, the return with the elixir. The transformation is complete, the journey is over, and the hero is ready to return. Occasionally we'll see a twist ending here that leads to a sequel, but in the case of the South Park movie, it was a once and done adventure. So in the movie, the boys are still grounded. However, all of the people killed in the war are brought back to life. Kenny is permitted to enter heaven instead of having to go back to hell. And for the only time in the entire South Park franchise, we get to see Kenny McCormick's face. To the South Park fans, that's worth any war on heaven and hell. So that's basically an esoteric breakdown of the hero's journey as it applies to the South Park movie, but these steps can be applied to really any story or any cycle in our lives. So essentially, this is the story of you. This is the story of your life. And once you know how to apply this, as well as the Hermetic principles and the concept of shadow work, which I've covered in previous videos, feel free to check them out, you can have a better understanding of how the flow of your life works and how to easily overcome challenges, or even if not easily overcome, to better overcome them in a quicker time frame. Once you're aware of cycles, it's easier to break them, versus if you're just going through life unconsciously, say prior to a spiritual awakening, it's much harder prior to an awakening to understand how these things work. But once you have a general framework for how these things work, it's much easier to ascend, essentially. So the books, and in this case, finally, a movie for this week, are The Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell, as well as The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell. These books break down in much more words than what I've done in this movie, the concepts, in this video, the concepts that I've described. And the South Park movie, again, is one of my favorite, if not my favorite movie ever. Definitely check them out. The links will be in the description below. If you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you feel so called, share it with other people. Again, my name is Steve Forchetti, and I hope you have a nice day. Namaste.